It Welcome to Derry is digging deep into Pennywise lore. The intro sequence alone has so many hidden details it could fill a Stephen King novel. Did you catch all these references? The first thing you see is the most obvious. Aside from Pennywise itself, Paul Bunyan is one of the most recognizable icons in It lore thanks to the towering 20-foot-tall plastic statue in front of Derry's city center. In the show, the Welcome to Derry billboard claims that Bunyan was born in the town. In the book, Richie's internal monologue calls him the patron saint of Derry. All that is to say he's a big deal in Derry, and opening on the mythical plaid-clad woodsman makes a lot of sense considering that. But fans know that the cheerful kitsch eventually takes a dark turn when he leaves his pedestal to terrorize Richie. Later in the second episode, we see that the Bunyan statue is actually in the process of being built. And like in the book, nobody wants the big ugly thing around. But it won't be long before he's always there, looming over the citizens of Derry, much like the threat of Pennywise itself. Under Bunyan's watchful eye, the next visual in the intro is a cheerful family having a picnic. Nothing sinister about that, until you see where they're picnicking. On a grassy knoll right under the Derry Water Tower, aka the Standpipe, probably pretty close to the spot where 8-year-old Stephen Johnson's body was found. King describes the Standpipe as a popular spot in Derry because of the views it provides of Derry, or at least it was a popular spot until several children drowned in the water tank. In the book, it's also where Stan Uris had his first run-in with it and heard the ghostly voices of the kids who drowned there. In other words, it's just another charming, sunny spot in Derry ruined by the machinations of a cosmic clown. From the picnic tableau, we slide back to see a little girl looking into a storm drain with a missing child flyer on the cement next to her. No explanation really needed there. Anyone who's ever even casually glanced at an It trailer knows that sewers and missing kids are what Pennywise is all about. It's its M.O.
Hiya, Georgie.
Since Pennywise likes to stick to the shadows, the sewers are the perfect way to get around town. Once someone's lured underground and out of sight, it's almost always the end of the line. And walls plastered with missing kid posters might as well be a mandate in the town charter for Derry. Every time we check back in with the town, it's during a rash of disappearances as it begins taking another cycle of interest in the townsfolk. Clowns gotta feed. In the background behind the girl, you can see Keene's pharmacy looming tall. That's another staple of the It story. Norbert Keene is Derry's resident pharmacist and the owner of the Center Street drugstore.
No, it's not gonna pop, it's a mole.
The book hints that he might be something of a sadistic chap. The kids don't like him much, at least, but the 2017 film makes that a little more explicit. How old would that creeper be in 1962? In the film and show timeline, probably not old enough to own his own store, which means there might be a few generations of Keenes running around town. Whether they're all bad people remains to be seen, but come on, this is Derry. Why wouldn't they be? Peeking out beside Keene's is the Capitol Theater with a marquee for The Music Man. That's the movie that kicks off the first episode. It also ends it when Maddie and the family from the car break the show's fourth wall and sick the grown-up demon Bat Baby on the theater. The Music Man is, like so many other references in It, a real movie from 1962, and the fact that the theater is already playing such a big part in the show is fitting, since it's such a central fixture of the town and the place where the kids watch so many of the horror movies that play into the terrors when It begins stalking them. One interesting detail is that the names keep changing in every adaptation. In the book, it's the Aladdin Theater, the 1990 miniseries called it the Paramount Theater, and it's been the Capitol ever since the latest incarnation of Derry reared its head in 2017. Why? Who knows? Moving on from there, the intro pulls us past a group of children swimming next to the Kissing Bridge, and the cheerful postcard nostalgia starts to take a darker turn. Here, for the first time, we see a lurking evil and a child mesmerized by a shape glowering in the exit of a storm overflow tunnel. There aren't any squid monsters or octopus beasts in the book, which isn't to say the show couldn't add some if it wanted. Based on what's been out there before, our best guess for that tentacled critter would be the Crawling Eye. Again, real thing from a real movie. The Crawling Eye is a 1958 black and white horror movie about, wouldn't you know it, an eyeball that crawls around on tentacles. It's one of those schlocky creature features Richie watches at the Derry Theater that everyone else laughs at except for him. Near the end of the book, the losers have a battle with the Crawling Eye and only defeat it when Eddie pretends that his asthma inhaler is full of battery acid. If something like that does show up, this would be the first time an adaptation uses that specific imagery. Well, aside from this little guy at least.
Hey! That fortune cookie's looking at me!
Ice pick, hammer, terrified child. Nothing cheery about this visual. Billy's getting lobotomized. Just in case you're still holding off on that reread of psychosurgery and the treatment of mental disorders and intractable pain, lobotomy used to be the it thing for treating mental disorders. It was pretty horrific, but did get the intended result of giving you a docile, only slightly senile patient, so that's something at least.
Lobotomy gets them home.
Basically, a surgeon would take a sharp pick and stick it through the back of your eye socket, then keep driving it down until it broke through the bone behind the socket and cut through the nerves connecting your prefrontal cortex to the rest of your brain. Yeah, pretty gross. And that was the updated version. Prior to that, the SOP was to drill straight through the skull. With the newfangled pick method, the procedure was easier, quicker, and involved less skull dust. A win-win for everyone. At least until they finally realized that nobody won, and it was a terrible thing to do to people. Fortunately, we're more civilized these days and can get our lobotomies much more painlessly by scrolling the internet all day. Hooray for progress. The place where that kid's lobotomy is happening is Juniper Hill Asylum, where the counselors walk around with rolls of quarters in their pockets to deal with unruly patients. Patients like Henry Bowers, who was sent to Juniper Hill after killing his father. You're starting to get the picture at this point. Things in and around Derry aren't exactly the picture of happiness. Juniper Hill is a familiar locale not just in It, but in Stephen King's work at large. It features in nearly a dozen novels, all told. We saw it in the modern age in It Chapter 2 when adult Bowers was paid a visit by Pennywise before returning to Derry, but something tells us that Juniper Hill in the 60s is going to be a lot more terrifying. The next striking visual in the intro brings us back into Derry to the house on Neibolt Street, which, not to oversell it, plays a pretty big part in the story. It's where Eddie has a run-in with Pennywise in the guise of a leper, and it's where the losers take the fight back to it, or at least try to. The house was built over the old well that ultimately connects all the sewers in Derry, making it essentially the front door of Pennywise's lair. Sunflowers have always been linked with the Neibolt house too, which explains, well, the sunflowers there. In the movie, they're sort of scattered around the overground lawn, but the book describes a massive patch of sunflowers growing by the house, even though it's been abandoned and there's nobody to plant them. Spooky. As the intro pulls back from the house on Neibolt Street, we see that it's sitting in the epicenter of a nuclear blast. This is a new element in the show, but makes sense. Set in 1962, Maine and the rest of America are living in the shadow of the Cold War, when nuclear fears were lurking in the back of everyone's mind like a murdery clown. Everyone lived with the day-to-day fear that they'd look up and see a mushroom cloud looming over the horizon, courtesy of the USSR. Children were taught duck and cover drills, which were basically like tornado drills these days, except you huddled under your desk and hoped that thin piece of wood would keep you safe from a radioactive bomb blast. Interspersed throughout the It novel are several stories about the history of Derry, and one of them centers on the Bradley Gang. That's the scene we see depicting a shootout between 30s-era gangsters with Tommy guns and an old bullet-ridden LaSalle. Since the timeline in the movies is changed and the show ties into those, we figured this is happening in the year they claimed, which would be 1935. Either way, it's when Alan George Bradley and their gang of thugs were ambushed and massacred and inadvertently became a part of Derry's sordid history. How much that will play into this season remains to be seen, but it's definitely going to be a part of the 1935 setting of the second season. One interesting detail you might have missed in the background of the Bradley Gang massacre is a sign with the name Bowers. Obviously, Bowers isn't a name you throw into an It story lightly. You've got Henry Bowers, public enemy number one as far as the losers are concerned. He's a sociopathic school kid who aggressively bullies the main characters throughout their childhoods. As an adult, he comes back to do a lot more of the same. In the 2017 film, his dad is a police officer, which ties into Welcome to Derry in an unexpected way. In 1962, Derry's chief of police is a guy named Clint Bowers, who at least seems to be trying to do the right thing, at first anyway. And to be clear, we don't even know at this point if they're related, but it'd be a huge stretch to think they aren't. Derry's the kind of town where people stick around for generations, and this guy could easily have a son who grows up into this guy.
Hey!
All we really know is that there's a Bowers in Derry in 1962, and this image makes it pretty clear that there's been a Bowers in Derry since at least the 30s. In the space of seconds, the intro basically runs through a greatest hits of Pennywise's favorite memories. After the Bradley gang, the next thing you see is an Easter bunny in flames over the Kitchener Ironworks, and again, fans know that this is another black spot in Derry's history. In 1908, which is when the third season is supposed to be set, the factory suddenly and mysteriously exploded. On its own, that would have been fine, but it just so happened to explode on Easter Sunday after the Ironworks owners had organized an Easter egg hunt for the local children. Going by the book's numbers, the explosion killed 102 people, 88 of them children hunting for eggs. Years later, when Mike Hanlon is a kid, the ruins of the Ironworks are where he sees it as a giant murder bird. Through it all, Pennywise lurks in the background just like it always does. Even though you don't see him, you know he was behind the Ironworks explosion that sent a boy's head sailing into a woman's backyard apple tree. He's at the Bradley gang massacre, more or less the same way it's described in the book. Everyone who's there that day remembers seeing the clown, though they all remember it slightly differently. He's running the projector for the film about nuclear destruction in the classroom, keeping his hand on the fears coursing through the people and children in the town. In the center of that explosion, there's a red balloon floating high above the house on Neibolt Street, set afloat by his spirit hidden in the window of the house. He's probably this nurse with her eager smile as she holds that boy to be lobotomized. He's holding out a lollipop to lure a boy into the sewers, looking out at this girl from a different section of those sewers. He's at the Standpipe, waiting for the chance to get his hands on a family enjoying their picnic, and looming above it all, he's Paul Bunyan, happy to tell any visitor, welcome to Derry.